The Leave Your Legacy podcast is brought to you by Covenant Workplace Solutions. Covenant is a full-service workplace mental health and wellness partner, helping organizations across the country strengthen the lives of their employees and the families they go home to every day. Your employee assistance program should raise the bar, not simply check the box. And Storyline Multimedia. Storyline is an Iowa City-based media company that creates high-quality video, photo, and audio for local businesses. They produce a number of great podcasts, including this one. If you're interested in sharing your story, please contact them at storylinemultimedia.com. And remember, your story matters. Hello and welcome to the Leave Your Legacy Show. I'm your host, Kenyon Murray, and today we have a very, very special guest who has allowed me to grace and interrupt his daily life. A young man I've known for over 20 years. He's done so many things, not only overcome so many obstacles, but he has been a shining light in the community of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Please welcome to the show, Stacey Walker. Stacey, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Kenyon. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man. So it's been kind of crazy because I was talking to Michelle last night about just how long that we've known you, and obviously you were best friends with my brother-in-law, her brother Mitch, and we're like, man, it's been like 22 years. We've known you for 22 years, man, and so it's been crazy, right?
It's been a hot minute. I was recounting to my wife last night too, the stories of that apartment out on the highway, right when Mitch came from Anamosa, seeing you there, seeing the boys grow up. It's been a long time coming. It's been a beautiful experience. So I'm grateful to you, Michelle, and the fam for accepting me into your life.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. Any friend of Mitch's is a friend of ours for sure. But yeah, man, I mean, jumping right into it, you talk about, just thinking back, right? And your life has gone in so many different directions. I mean, you've done so many things in such a short span. Just give our audience a little bit about Stacey Walker growing up. I think your story is one of tremendous courage and one that, I would just say, like, you never set limits on yourself, even though you could have based on your situation growing up. But give our listeners, our viewers, a little bit of insight on Stacey Walker.
Sure. Thank you for that. Well, look, Kenyon, I was born and raised on the southeast side of Cedar Rapids. I was born to a single teenage mother who had me and my little sister. And shortly after the birth of my little sister, my mother was killed in an unsolved homicide in Buffalo, New York. And so, with no fathers in our lives, my sister and I went to live with our maternal grandmother, who raised us, who really shaped who I became as a man. Her name was Shirley. She was a child of the South. She hailed from Opelika, Alabama, and moved with her family toward the end of the Great Migration to Chicago, which a lot of African-American families in the American South were moving north, and they were moving west to escape Jim Crow South. Only to find, I think, other forms of segregation and discrimination, but probably less severe in many respects. And then in the late 70s, early 80s, my grandmother came over to Iowa, I like to say, as a domestic refugee. It was around about that time where inner cities like Chicago were getting really dangerous. And so being right next door to Iowa, a lot of African-American families were going to Iowa and going to Minnesota and other places in the Midwest. So my story, I like to say, starts with my grandmother, who was also, didn't go to college until her 50s. She went to Kirkwood Community College and got her degree to become a nurse's assistant or a nurse's aide, and worked in medical records in the basement of Mercy and St. Luke's Hospital, and did the best she could to raise me and my sister. And I do believe that my grandmother is the reason I am who I am, and was the reason I overcame what we overcame in our family's history.
One thing I wanted to ask you too is, growing up, how much did you know, or how much did your grandmother share about the situation with your mother? And obviously, like you said, an unsolved homicide, but is that something that she, made the information like readily available? Was it something that you guys talked about? Because that's something that's really traumatic, and, being young and growing up, it can definitely leave some scars. But I just
Totally.
wanted to ask you, like, what did your grandmother tell you in that, when you guys asked about your mom
Yeah.
and things like that?
Well, Kenyon, what's wild is I went to the police department with my grandmother. So my sister and I were staying with my grandmother while my mother went to New York to look after a friend of hers who was very ill. And
Hmm.
she was going to stay with her and kind of nurse her back to health. And so my sister and I were staying with our grandmother when it happened.
Hmm.
And, um, back then cell phones weren't readily available. So all my grandmother knew was that my mom dropped us off, said she was going to be gone for a week or two,
Hmm.
and, stopped sort of checking in. And so it's, thinking back on it, I remember my grandmother being upset at my
Hmm.
mom. She was like, it's just like Tracy to drop her kids off and she's out partying and
Oh,
she's not
wow.
checking in. And then, the weeks turn into several weeks and, my grandmother started to get concerned. And so I remember as a kid watching TV,
Hmm.
and on the bottom third of the screen, there was this ticker that basically asked, if you have any information about the whereabouts of these two children, contact the Cedar Rapids Police Department. And it was my
Mm.
face and my sister's face. And so, my grandmother calls a police station, and then we go in the next day. And I remember my grandmother, after a conversation with one of the detectives, giving him a hug, and it was striking to me because I never saw my grandmother hug a white man before in
Oh,
my life.
wow.
So I remember as a
Yeah, yeah,
kid
yeah.
being like, "This is big."
Right.
And my grandmother then, when we got home, explained to me that my mother had gone to heaven and that we wouldn't be seeing her anymore. And so that was my first sort of understanding of what it was. But there was an article about her in the newspaper. And Kenyon,
Mhm.
I was a pretty sharp kid. I
Yeah.
could read and speak quite early. I had a pretty developed vocabulary. But I read this news article, and the news article sort of detailed what had happened, how her body was discovered, and that it was an unsolved crime. So I had the details quite
Mhm.
early. Of course, you don't really make a whole lot of sense of that when you're,
Right.
4 or 5 years old. But I knew quite early what happened, and certainly it's had some sort of impact on me. But I wonder if just saying it out loud, it's been one of the reasons why I've been so justice oriented
Mhm.
in my life and seeking careers and jobs that um, where I get to sort of show up for people and make sure their voices are heard and make sure they feel seen, and that justice is done.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's so admirable of you, and we'll definitely get into all that. But, also, not having your father there, right? So there's, the one thing we hear all the time, and it's true, is that the African American family has been destroyed in a lot of different ways. You talk about, the drug epidemic, just talking about like New York, and just all these black men that went to jail or were killed because of those things. So not having your father around, how was, this question is like, how did your grandmother kind of fill those gaps for you, right? We always say it takes a village to raise a child, but obviously not having your dad, your mom, being killed, there had to be a lot going on with you when it came to like trying to figure out like how am I, what is my life going to be like? So how did your grandmother try and fill those, whether it was things she did or people that she put into your life? How instrumental was she in helping develop you as a young man?
Yeah, great question. My grandmother was everything. There's this quote attributed to Lincoln: "Everything I am, everything I ever will be, I owe to my angel mother." And I feel the same way about my grandmother. Just, about to become a bio dad myself here in a few months. I think about what it must feel like to get that call as a mother, first off, that
Mm-hmm.
her daughter is never coming home again, and then to inherit her daughter's two kids and to
Mm-hmm.
sort of see her daughter through us and being raised in that way. So we grew up poor. We didn't have much. We grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood. But it's really funny, there was so much love in my life that, I didn't ever feel super disadvantaged. I mean, I knew we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have money. I knew I could
Right.
never get a new pair of Jordans, but like outside of that, it's like my life felt really good. And I
Yeah.
attribute that to the soul of a woman who had a strong faith in God, who had seen some stuff in her lifetime too, right? Like
Yeah.
being born in Alabama and coming up in Chicago during some very turbulent times in our nation's history. So she was no stranger to trauma. But I think her deep faith is what allowed her to pour so richly into my life and my sister's life. And that makes a difference. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can grow up with nothing as we did and still feel like you had everything.
Yeah.
And so I, and let me also just say this: my grandmother pouring love into us is not unique. And as you point out, with the sort of rupture of the Black family, that
Mm-hmm.
role often falls on the Black woman, the
Mm-hmm.
grandmother, the aunt, whoever it is. There's usually some maternal role that steps into the gap. And she was that for me. And despite our circumstances, held very high standards for my sister and I,
Mm-hmm.
and was determined that our life was going to be a little bit better than hers. And so she gets all the credit, man. I'm a testimony to her work, to Shirley Ann.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the one thing about you said you're a sharp kid growing up. The thing is you've been blessed with incredible talents. Um, and one of the things I want to ask you is you at an early age, you just talked about it, like, injustice and things like that. It really motivated you. And then you go on, you graduate from Cedar Rapids, Washington, and then you go on to Iowa and get a political science degree. So what happened leading up to that when you're Stacey Walker about to graduate? You're like, you know what? I'm going to Iowa and I'm going to get a political science degree. What were you thinking you were going to do with that degree?
Oh man, yeah, that's interesting. What was the thing I was going to do with a political science degree? I don't think I knew what the end game was. Always in the back of my mind, I figured eventually, when I'm in my 40s and I'm married and I have kids, eventually I'll run for office. That's kind
Hmm.
of what I figured. And that, we all know how that turned out.
Yeah.
I knew though that I wanted to be a do-gooder. I wanted to
Mm,
just be in a space where I could be helpful. Felt as if I was blessed. I knew I was blessed too at a certain point, with an ability of just seeing the world in a way that is fundamentally justice oriented. But
mhm.
really, I knew I was going to get a degree in political science in seventh grade at McKinley
Okay.
Middle School when, in our social studies unit, we were learning about the civil rights movement, reading about Martin. That was the first time I read Malcolm X's autobiography. And I remember sort of talking about the strategies that different leaders were taking to achieve liberation in the 60s with my social studies teacher. Mark Dirks was his name. And I said, like almost in passing, I said, wouldn't it be cool if you could study this stuff for like a living? Like, how people go to college and get
Yeah.
degrees. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if you could study like movement strategy? And he was like, boy, have I got news for you. You actually can. There's a whole discipline out there that studies social movements and how change happens and how governments work and don't work. And so I determined in middle school I was going to do this. And by the grace of God and a little luck here and there, I've really ended up in some cool positions where I could leverage a lot of what I learned. And
Mhm.
it's put me in spaces to learn from other people on how to be a good leader, on how to do right by people, on how to strive for justice.
Well, you graduate and you turn that into you becoming the first African American elected to the, Council of Supervisors, Board of
Yeah.
Supervisors for Linn County.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you? Because I remember going through it and listening to you and watching you and talk about your strategy and what you wanted to do. But it's like, what did that feel like when you were elected? I mean, that had to be,
Ooh.
I mean, you're the first, right? And when you talk about any first, it's pretty cool. But I want to get your take on and how you felt in that moment when you were elected.
Oh my goodness. The moment was crazy. And let me give you a bit of context first. So my very first job out of college was actually working for you, Kenyon. I don't know if you remember. You gave me my first job helping to stand up a nonprofit to focus on mostly inner city youth to make sure they were being able to play basketball and do well in the classroom. So that was my very first job. But to give you more context about the political run for office, so I was not in my 40s. I'm not yet in my 40s. So I ran for office much sooner in my life than I thought I would. And I ran because I remember there was one summer where there were several incidents of youth gun violence in the Cedar Rapids area, pretty pronounced. And there was this incident where it was like a 14-year-old shot and killed a 15-year-old right near where I was living. And it just didn't seem like there were enough leaders in the community that cared or cared enough to do something meaningful about it. And that to me means something beyond let's all get together and all wear the same shirt and talk about the individual we just lost. I mean, that stuff is important, don't get me wrong, but it didn't seem like we were being very proactive about solving for the problem. And so I was going to community meetings as a citizen in my spare time. I had a full-time job working with one of my best friends, build hotels around the country. And I just wasn't satisfied with leadership. And so I made a decision to run for office through that lens. And this is important because, really, I think that my story in American politics in the state of Iowa really could have only happened then because the state of Iowa has changed quite dramatically. A young Black progressive running on a campaign of we have to do something to stop our young people from killing one another. And that means fundamentally, stopping sort of the structural problems that create these conditions for violence to happen. I mean, that's a pretty radical, rather progressive notion for a community. As I look at it now and how the political leadership is oriented. So that was sort of the context of my campaign. And I was aware that I was the first. Linn County is the second largest county in the state of Iowa. Yeah. So I'm aware of the sort of history that's trailing this effort. And then, my grandmother passes away right at the start of the campaign. A good friend of mine was running for Congress. His campaign ended. And I'm just at this point where it's just like a perfect storm of things happening in my life that could push a young person in any direction. But I stayed the course, and then we win. I was elected November 2016, which was the same day that Donald Trump was elected. So needless to say, there was a lot of pride and good feelings in my heart, but sort of an instinct that told me we've got a lot of work ahead as well.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool duality at play.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk a lot about, kind of perfect storm, right? Of things happening that pushed you that way. And you went into a position where there was a lot of storms. There was a lot of things going on in the city. And so, being elected to that position, did you feel that you had, whether it's the resources, knowledge, network, to truly make change? Or did you feel like once you got in, you felt there was all these different battles or obstacles that you had no idea would come? I just kind of want to ask, like, what were you feeling when you got in there? Like, did you truly feel, I know you wanted to make
Yeah.
a difference
Mm-hmm.
and make a change.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you had the things in place when you were elected to make the change that you wanted to make?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Yeah. So I think when I got elected, there were enough people in office where, had we been able to figure it out, we probably could have made quantum leaps for Eastern Iowa. I think one of the biggest disappointments and learning experiences of that whole part of my life was that not everybody in the world of politics is interested in constructive, meaningful, collaborative, bipartisan change. They're just not. And that was so tough for me because I grew up believing the best. I believed that people got into, public office to really do good. I thought they were all super smart. I came up watching a TV show called The West Wing, written by Aaron Sorkin, which sort of idealized American politics. And so I was really naive, and that was just a tough lesson for me because and I think the people know this, the people fundamentally know this, that not everybody in power is there for the right reasons.
Right.
And I think I knew that sort of in the back of my mind, but I think I was projecting that onto the federal government. And it was like, surely, people involved in a community don't need to be mired in partisan politics like those folks in Washington, D.C. But it turns out, Kenyon, that they are. And that was really, really tough for me. So on the one hand, I do think we did a lot. I think we focused the lens of government on marginalized communities. We had what we call second chance programs, ban the box initiatives. We did expungement clinics to get people's records expunged and their cases sealed. We invested in an effort to make sure folks could at least get to Kirkwood Community College and have 2 years of college accessible. We did a lot, like a lot, which I'm really proud of. But I also know how much more could have been achieved had it been an environment where folks were genuinely interested in helping folks. And it just cuts like a buzzsaw, and it's really dispiriting, I would say.
Yeah. I'm not going to make this a political podcast at all either, but I do wonder, what do you see for us moving forward, right? Because right now there's a lot of division. And I think when you were talking about why people get into politics, the one thing that I feel is that, yes, they have the opportunity, resource, that kind of thing to really make change. But to me, it feels like whenever I hear any politician talk, it's really about them. It's almost like self-preservation, right? Like there's some things that are said that you're like, there is no way in the world that person should even believe that.
Right.
But when you think about where they're at from a position standpoint, where they want to go, I mean, we're speculating, where they want to go politically, then it becomes this thing where everything they say is to advance them to a position that they're seeking.
Exactly.
And not really about the people, because one of the quotes I use a lot now is like, a legacy is not what you leave behind, it's who you lift up. And then the political landscape, that's what we are looking to our representatives to do, to lift us up, to lift our state up, to, Iowa used to be one of the top. I remember, when I came to Iowa back in the 90s, Iowa was like one of the top educational states in the country. I mean, top 5.
Absolutely.
And then we've fallen off.
Top 2, Kenyon.
Top two. Okay, there you go. Okay, yeah, make me a liar there, right? Yeah. So, but now we're in the bottom. I mean, I think we might be 3rd or 4th from the bottom when you look at the 50 states. And so, for me, it's like, what are we doing, one, as community members, but then what are our elected officials doing to really lift up the community or state that they come from? Like, I just find it very, very hard to really follow somebody and listen genuinely and really think like, hey, this person has my best interest or my state's best interest at heart. Is that something you agree with, or am I just out in left field right now?
I agree, and we don't need to make this political to have, to be people in the world who just can plainly see what's going on. This isn't a Republican thing. It isn't a Democratic thing. It's a political thing, and I think I mean, the short answer is it doesn't feel like politicians care about people anymore because they don't, because the primary objective for a politician is always self-preservation. It's how do I win the next election? And the way they win elections is by getting enough money to beat whoever might challenge them. And the way they get money is by doing things for people who make political contributions to their campaign. So what's really driving the ship in American politics is the interests of wealthy people who can essentially buy politicians. And that makes corruption pervasive. It's not just one party, it's both parties. And until money gets out of politics, I don't know if that will change. But your first question was sort of, what do I see? How does this all end up? Where are we going?
Right.
If the question can be posed this way, do I have hope for the future? The answer is yes. And the reason is this. Every generation has its problem or set of problems that always feels like there's no way out of this. I don't know how. I don't know how we solve for, in the 1960s, right? The civil rights. I don't know how we do that. I don't know how we, get through this season of terrorism, when we were experiencing in the 90s and the 2000s. And I don't know how we do that. And the crazy part, Kenyon, is I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not sure every generation knows what the answer is until it happens.
Right.
And I know that there are enough smart people being born today and enough people who are sort of coming into an enlightenment and realizing that politics isn't working for them. Doesn't matter, what your political stripe is. It's the system's not working. And at some point, the dam breaks. At some points, these political leaders go away. They either leave office, they die, they get voted out, whatever. And there's got to be a reckoning. And I just have to believe that there are enough smart people out there. There are enough ambitious people coming up in the world where we're going to start making better decisions. And I am optimistic because every generation has had to confront their own set of issues and they figured it out. With that said, we all need to be intentional and play our respective roles. Having conversations with people is a really good way to do that too.
Yeah, and that truly, I mean, that was the best setup you could ever give me as I was thinking, about what I wanted to ask you next. And that's my thing is when I look at, say, what we're doing, and I'm not tooting our horn or anything like that, but I truly feel like the one thing that we can do as community members is we can be impactful.
Yes.
In the things that we're doing. So when I look at what the Murray Family Foundation is doing with this facility and all the resources, it's about how do we give access to people that don't have it? How do we create opportunities for people that don't have it? Regardless of race, creed, or color, how do we in our community do something to give people that need the access more access? And so do you feel that it's upon each community member to really try and make an impact that way?
Yeah.
As opposed to doing something super huge. And obviously we have a great platform. Not everybody can do what we're doing, but everybody can do their part.
Yes.
When it comes to leaning into the community, helping this out. We're facing so many different things. We're facing unbelievable unemployment. We're facing, super high grocery prices. You talk about what the food pantries are doing just here in Johnson County. It's amazing the poundage and amount of food that's needed because people can't afford it.
Right.
And so that's my thing is I feel that we as individual citizens, community members, we have to do our part in order to make that change.
Yes.
And I think by doing that, we educate ourselves. We get back to what you said about political science, right? We get back to, hey, being a do-gooder, getting in the office and making change. And I think you're saying the people that are being born now, the young adults, like if they see us individually doing these things in our community, I would hope that we were able to create something, to spark something in that next generation of politicians.
Yeah.
To truly, truly do what you believe when you decided to go to Iowa and get that degree.
Yeah.
Am I off base, or
No, you're not.
is
No,
that something?
you're spot on. I mean, doing good is contagious,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I do believe in that old maxim, you do what you can with what you have where you are. Not everybody needs to be a Martin or a Malcolm, like, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and when those people come throughout history, like, great, we're better for it. Change often happens at the micro level, and
Mm.
it sort of compounds, right? And if you can get everybody in your community oriented toward a vision, you don't even need everybody. You know,
Right.
you need 20% of people. It's that 80-20 rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get it, to be on board and doing what they can with what they have, change will happen. And just, to keep it 100, like, this generation coming up looking at these issues,
Mm-hmm.
it's binary in an existential way, right? Either they solve for these problems or society's going to collapse.
Right.
Right? So they don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. And I think, an easy way to look at it so you don't feel like you're boiling the ocean, is to do what you can with what you have where you are. That's the best advice I can give people who may be weary in these times.
Yeah, no, I love that, and that's a great way to put it. I think, for me, it's trying to change one life at a time. Because when you look at what we did, even in starting the LBA Foundation and now with the Murray Family Foundation, we are focused on kids. We're focused on holistic development of kids. Yes, sometimes we use sports to bring people in, but I think it allows us access to people and family that may not be involved in sports,
Sure.
right? And so for us, it's about how do we honestly like create the hope in people, because there's
Yeah.
so many people in our community that's like, like you were saying, you grew up, as you stated, poor. But that doesn't mean that you can't have access or you don't deserve access to the resources that are going to allow you to grow up and be the man that you are today. And so that's really what our focus is. And I think one of the things that we talked about is like bringing people together, right? So in our situation, we're bringing 3 other nonprofits and a mental wellness company to the table with this project to be able to do more good. The one thing I found in nonprofit work, and I'm on like 3 different boards and all this kind of stuff, but what I found is there's a lot of times that if individual nonprofits got together, there would be a huge impact on the community. And because I've seen so often that nonprofits are fighting for the same dollars and they're
Yep.
going after the same people. But if you come together, there's things that each individual nonprofit, there's something that somebody's like, oh, I like this about this nonprofit. I can donate there. Oh, they're partnering with these people. They're doing this. I have a heart for that too. So now I can do that. So we actually open up opportunities for donations when you have different people like this and the nonprofits talking to each other. It's like, hey, Kenyon has a program over here that's doing really great. They could use your support. And
Yeah.
so that's what I envision, like you're saying, is all of us working together for a
Yes.
common goal, which is uplifting people in our community,
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to potentially change the trajectory of not only their life,
Right.
but future generations in that family.
Right.
And so being able to work together is something that's so hard, but there's so many entities out there that it's like they want to be an end all be all to everything that's nonprofit.
Yep.
And they drop the ball in certain areas.
Yes.
So that's what our thing is. It's like, hey, let's get together and do this thing together.
Absolutely.
You guys got some great ideas. We got some good ideas. I have access. I have a network. Like that needs to be more of what we see when it comes to nonprofits and things like that, even people working together to
Absolutely.
make our communities better.
Kenyon, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because that has been a classical problem in the nonprofit world, where the system is just set up to make nonprofits compete against one another, and it disincentivizes collaboration because they're all going to the same funders and saying, no, invest with us because we're better. Also, we need it, right? Like they're just set up to do that way. And actually, in a weird way, higher education, like academia, has this similar sort of problem where they're all competing to get their research funded. and it sort of stymies collaboration, which is the last thing you want. And so I'm just grateful to hear that your family foundation has recognized that and is working to sort of be a connector in this space and demonstrate, a methodology where it's a nonprofit landscape where we're really truly incentivizing collaboration as opposed to forcing people off in their respective silos. And honestly, just to sort of land the plane here, as they say, to bring it back, that's coalition building, right? Like that's what's going to work in politics and in people is how do we get folks together to say, I know we have our differences. This may be your priority. This may be my priority, but let's all agree in this general vision that we ought to be lifting people up and making our society better and more accessible, more equitable, more dignified for all people. That's it. That's the essence of it.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well, I'm glad I'm on the right track.
You are on the right track.
I'm glad I'm on the right track. All right, so we're going to circle back. Like, listen, it's been a great conversation, but we got to talk about the joyous things in life as well. And you, my friend, recently married.
Yes.
Which I'm just being honest, didn't know when it was happening because between you and Mitch, y'all gonna settle this thing down,
we beat the odds, Kenyon. We beat the odds.
So recently married, and newly expecting, like you said earlier, your own quote biological son. So tell me about the heavenly bliss of marriage and the excitement that's coming with you becoming. You're a father now. You're a stepfather now. But the excitement in having your own offspring, like that is just something like you can't really describe. But I'm asking you to describe.
Yeah, sure.
Your marriage bliss and the new baby coming in. Yeah.
Well, let me first say my wife, Lauren, is wonderful and truly the best thing that's ever happened to me. It has marrying Lauren has made me a better man in all the right ways. So I'm grateful to her. I'm grateful to the family that I've married into. I have 3 stepchildren now, and they're all wonderful, and they've all been a blessing. And perhaps a conversation for another episode. You talk about marital bliss. It has been wonderful. It has been everything. And it's also been challenging, and I'm not even a year in yet, right? Like it's been a wild, beautiful ride. And that has made me a better man, learning how to navigate the highs and the lows. And now looking to become a father is just, it gets more real every single day as we close in, to the arrival date. And I'm having different feelings now that I couldn't have even imagined. And it's like, a friend of mine said something, he texted me, said, it's getting pretty real now. And I said, yeah, but like in so many different ways, like it's real that I now think about the best and the worst, like how I might feel if everything doesn't go our way. And we lose the baby or we lose Lauren, right? Like you start to think about care. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like I care for my wife differently because I'm looking through these ultra mortal lenses now. Like life could change so quickly and in a moment's notice, and it makes you feel differently about a person. It makes you respect life a little differently. And ultimately, I think it sets the stage for the kind of joy, the depth of joy you can feel when our son joins the world. Hopefully sometime in February, but they may come at the end of next month too.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I think you're in a unique situation for this. It's you marry into a family, you have your instant dad. Right. You got 3, you're instant dad, right? So but they're a little bit older. And so do you feel like it's given you a little bit of advantage? Let's say that you had met Lauren and there were no kids involved, right? So now you guys, Is it different for you
Yeah.
marrying into that and then having your first? Because if you think a lot of times, I mean, I'm just being real. Gentlemen your age may have already been married and may have already
Sure.
had kids, and so they have this different perspective. Do you think becoming an instant dad has prepared you more for the
That's
arrival of your son?
that's my guess. My guess is, I mean, of course I can't know until he gets here, but yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like I got the training wheels a little bit. Like I got
Hmm.
a chance to ride the bike and to see Lauren really in action be the amazing parent she is. Um, and they're such wonderful kids too. They made it really really easy on me. But yeah, I think I got a chance to sort of see what good healthy family looks like. I've been able to think about the things that I wanted when I was a child growing up and the
Hmm.
things I admired in other families, your family being one of them. So like now I'm like super intentional in
Hmm.
my thinking on the kind of father I want to be when our little one arrives. And so it's been wild. It's been weird. And I would imagine maybe a little different than most who are having their first child since I've had sort of the instant family.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's just like honestly, hopefully Lauren will never take this the wrong way if she watches this. I was not expecting you to settle down and get married, not because you were like, doing, what people that don't like to settle down do, but because you've been so busy. Like you've had these moments in your life where you're like living in another country and
Mhm.
doing this and doing that. Like you were just on the move, and you've always been someone that you were always looking to accomplish something from the stand or make a difference, travel the world, learn about yourself. Like honestly, I was kind of surprised when I heard
Yeah.
Stacey had somebody. I was like, oh, that woman is amazing. Then
Yes.
if she got Stacey to stay in one spot and settle down. But do you think too all those experiences, because and we don't have to get into them because you have traveled a lot, but how do you think all those experiences made you come to the point? It's like, yep, I'm ready to settle down, or was it just she came at a moment in time that was just perfect, and you were ready to say, yep, this is the woman I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with?
That's it, Kenyon. Um, I love living my life in a way that seeks the next big adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to most, as you pointed out, seeking the next big adventure might be prohibited by settling down. Um, but I quickly realized early in dating Lauren that she was the next big adventure. And the
Mm,
biggest, craziest, coolest adventure is building a life with someone and doing
yeah,
life with someone. And I didn't want to miss out on that. I did
yeah,
not, I wanted the adventure of my life to be with Lauren. And so that's it. It was easy for me to make that choice, and she gave me a choice. I said, hey, I really like you. I want to date you, but I
yeah.
also want to live in Puerto Escondido, Mexico. And she was just like, nah, nah. If you want this adventure, we are going to live together.
Yeah.
And what a blessing it has been. It's been wonderful, and I'm grateful that in that moment of time, when I met Lauren, there was a moment of clarity for me where I
Yeah.
realized this was now the direction of my life.
Yeah, I think that's one of the greatest things you can do as a human being is to make the decision to share your life with somebody else. Um, and there's still going to be ups and downs. It's never a smooth road. But I'm just so excited for you and happy for you
No, thank you.
in the journey that you're in right now. All right, one of the things I love to do with my guests is rapid fire, and I purposefully don't send these questions because I want to get the honest and genuine answer out of you. And you are somebody that's traveled a lot, but this is a question I love to ask people that are married that come on the show. If you had a bucket list getaway trip for you and Lauren, where would that be?
Oof, Africa. It'd be coastal Africa, Senegal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that because, I mean, is it one thing? Because a lot of us, we do a lot of ancestry.com stuff. So is it because of, you have roots there? Is there something different about that area, beauty, things you've heard that made that the bucket list?
Yes to all of that. I think it's because I feel some sort of ancestral connection to
Mm-hmm.
Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to be there. It looks to be one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I can't think of any other place I'd rather spend time with the love of my life than in a place where I felt like home and in a place that was beautiful and everybody looked like me.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Second question. Okay. Cookie, cake, or pie, and what flavor?
Chocolate chip cookie, easy.
Easy. Milk.
Easy, easy, absolutely. And like when I say chocolate chip cookie, I mean like boneless, like it's gooey and like,
Oh, yeah,
really
yeah,
just warm chocolate
yeah.
chip cookie all day. Dip
Okay.
it in some milk. Yeah, I'm a happy guy.
Okay. That's awesome. All right. Last one. You have the opportunity, and you may have been asked this question before, but you have the opportunity to sit down and have dinner with three people who are still living or have passed on. Who are those three and why?
Hmm. Malcolm X. Um, because I admire how his pursuit of liberation was so closely interwound with his feeling of black pride and how he wanted black people to feel beautiful in their own skin in a construct that I think wanted to make them not feel beautiful.
Gotcha.
So he would be one. Another person in history would be, oh, these last two are easy. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother and my mother.
Yeah.
Um, I would want them to see who I've become now,
Mm-hmm.
and it would make me feel good by making them proud. Uh, and I'd want to be able to see my mother's reaction when I told her I was making her a grandmother, and that I was married to someone she would love,
Yeah.
who had her first child at 19, just like my mother. Lauren, my wife, is a dancer. My mother was a dancer.
Wow.
I think they'd really hit it off. So I would like to
Wow.
facilitate that meeting.
Wow. Dude, that hit me in the heart, dude. Like
Mhm.
that's so cool. That's so cool. And it's one of those innate things where I think sometimes in a partner as men, we look I mean, I think too, depending on what that relationship was like, we do look for these characteristics in our future partner that we've seen someone else. Where there's, because like with Michelle and my mom, like they hit it off right away. So many different things in common, and so they've always had a really good relationship. So that is cool. But last thing I'm gonna ask you before we get out of here, man, is you always have something going on. What are you working on? What area? Because I think I might need to call you on one of the on the
Sure,
Sage strategy things.
sure.
We got this nonprofit. I know you do work with it. You know what we're about. But tell, like, Sage strategies, like, what is that? What are you doing? And then I probably will ask off air how much you cost. But let me know what you're. Give our audience a little bit of what you're doing
I
through
love it.
Sage strategies.
You were very kind to give me a few seconds to chat about Sage Strategies. So, Sage Strategies is actually the company I founded when I knew I was going to leave politics. It was my exit strategy. And what it has become, so it's a strategic communications firm, and we do a lot. Um, but what it has become is a way for me to sort of flex my creative muscles doing meaningful work with people who are doing meaningful work,
Mhm.
and really amplifying their profile, making sure that their messages are landing with the right audiences. So you can think of it as like a boutique communications firm. So that's the project that I started. And I also work as a consultant with Huron Consulting Group. And in the vertical that I'm in, I focus on helping mostly higher education institutions and other nonprofits raise money by learning their mission and their vision and helping them tell that story. So it's also very much the art and science of strategic communications being leveraged. So in both worlds, I'm basically doing storytelling for people who are trying to do some good in this world.
Okay, well, I can talk. I don't know if I can tell a story, so yeah, I'm probably going to have to give you a holler on some of this stuff. But
Would
man,
love.
my guy, I appreciate you so much for making time to come on the show. This has been an unbelievable conversation, giving people a little bit of insight into Mr. Stacey Walker. I mean, honestly, dude, I have to say this. You have been loyal. I wouldn't say to a fault, but when Mitch moved to Cedar Rapids to live with us, you were like his first dude, and you're still his first dude. And so I just want to say thank you for being such a great friend to Mitch. I want to thank you for being, such a supporter and advocate for the Murray family. And man, I just wish you continued success. I wish for you too and Lauren that you have a baby that loves to sleep, because that's one of the things that, new parents have to deal with, is that sleep thing. So, but man, just want to say thank you for coming on the show today, Stacey. Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Kenyon. This has been great. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you for joining us here on the Leave Your Legacy show. Tune in. You can find us on YouTube. If you want to listen to it on any other podcast channels, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, please join us there. And until next time, let's keep connecting.